that braved the weather to show up here today, and those of you that might be online someplace. We thank you for showing up. We're here to talk about S66, the bill we call the noise bill. I'm gonna let my colleagues introduce themselves. This will all be 4 minutes per person. And the senator from Grand Isle will hold up a little card and tell you you've got a minute left. Senator from Windsor is going to call people's names to testify, and she will let you know who's going to be, she'll call the name of the person that's going to testify and the name of the person that will be next on the list after that to get you ready. So so we'll create a flow so you can we'll have time to get ready with the person before that. But right now, and there will be no questions from the committee. It will be just listening to the testimony. We have one member of the committee that is across the hall and is chair of the Appropriations Committee. So they are conferencing the budget adjustment, which is the midterm adjustment to the budget. So he might be in and out during this, but Senator Perchlik is from Washington County. So, and the other members of my committee are?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, I'm Senator Wendy Harrison, and I represent the Windham District, which is Southeast Vermont. Nice to see you.
I'm Rebecca White, and I'm one of the Windsor County District Senators.
And I'm Rich Westman, and I represent Lamoille County and the Lamoille Senate District, and I do have Fletcher and Franklin County.
And I'm Pat Brennan. I represent Grand Isle County and Colchester.
Perfect. You will see the timer up on the screen, and with that, if you could start calling names.
Sure. And if you'll come up here to this chair, if possible. So
Some people are on Zoom.
And except if you're on Zoom. Rob Kidd from the Sierra Club is up first, and then after that is Karen Atkins, who is on Zoom.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the rest of the committee. Actually, I noticed my senator leaves the room when I'm testifying, but he hears enough from me, so.
Well, it's
Yeah.
flex.
My name is Rob Kidd. I am the Conservation Program Manager for the Vermont chapter of the Sierra Club. For those unfamiliar with the Sierra Club, we are the nation's largest and oldest conservation group. Nationally, we have over 2 million members and supporters. Here in Vermont, nearly 10,000 members and supporters. Our policy decisions are made within our local chapter here. And basically, at first, we were not involved with noise issues. But our specialty following transportation issues for the last 6 years, we were approached by one of our members, Karen Atkins, who will be coming up next, about her film, The Quietest Year. So we saw this natural evolution of our work on transportation, helping drive a policy direction forward with our membership. So we basically look at this as another opportunity to address concerns that are facing our membership and the population. Mostly our work over the years has been advancing electric vehicles, making roads safe for cyclists and pedestrians, and supporting transit. But as you hear with this case, this one is impacting Vermonters of all walks of life, especially those in more densely populated area or in downtown villages. But anyway, but after reviewing the various policy levers, we believe that the state of Vermont should act on this particular bill and pass it. One of the things we've noticed is that the noise levels are so strong throughout the place. Here, I live in Montpelier, about a mile away from here. And on the summer, I will sit on my porch in my backyard and hear the motorcycles flying through town, hear the engine braking happening in town. And I live in like a little wooded dead end street. Now, if I had that same amount of power and sound level that was blaring from my backyard and you could hear it here, I'm sure every cop in town would be at my doorstep. So it's just like one of those things is like, how loud is that noise to have to carry that far? But I wanted to make sure that you actually know with this limited time that there's going to be some opposition to this bill, and some of the people make some legitimate sense, but some of them, I think it's a little stretch of it, particularly with motorcycles. You know, I've always heard this line for years that loud pipes save lives. Well, there is no evidence stating that, especially since the pipes will face the sound directing opposite of the way the other vehicle is approaching. As well, you know, I think the stats in 21, 36% of motorcycle operators in fatal crashes had alcohol in their blood, and 29% were categorized as alcohol impaired. And then 33% of motorcycle operators in fatal crashes were speeding. So there's a lot more to do with the safety about a motorcycle than it is about having an excessive noise that bothers and disturbs people's livelihoods. So we think not enforcing the motorcycle sound limits is a false perception, safety, and is unreasonable. Second, we also hope vehicles equipped with engine braking systems are muffled. I mean, that is like, I've heard trucks even coming in Montpelier, even though there is a restriction in town, come through with engine braking, and really knocks me off like while I'm walking. And it is quite disturbing. But we're also, my understanding that a lot of the manufacturers actually have the equipment to actually muffle the sound. So it's the technology is there, just like seatbelts. So in closing, I just hope that you will proceed forward to address this so those who are adversely affected are not being disturbed in their homes. So thank you for your time.
Next up is Karen Atkins over Zoom, and then after that is James Hudson from Glover.
Hello, my name is Karen Akins, and I'm a resident of Stowe. In doing research for my latest documentary on noise and health, I did a deep dive into Vermont's transportation noise issues. I would like to invite you to join me in playing a little guessing game. When I hear a truck going by, I try to guess where it's from. What I've noticed over the years is that every single commercial truck with excessive exhaust noise in our state has a Vermont license plate. Not all trucks licensed in Vermont are noisy, but all noisy trucks in our state are licensed in Vermont. Why is that? Because Vermont has among the weakest muffler laws in the country. Vermont has a one-sentence exhaust noise law. When you compare our laws to the other 50 states, you'll see that Vermont is the outlier. The 40-ton 18-wheeler trucks carrying goods from out of state to Hannaford's, Price Chopper, FedEx, any national chain engaged in interstate commerce that pass right next to our homes day and night, they are quiet. They comply with US DOT regulations, which include noise. They are not the problem. In the many attempts to deal with excessive vehicle noise, I found that there's very little official inspectors or law enforcement can use to control noise as the state laws and rules are written now. Vermont's periodic inspection manual states that inadequate muffling does not constitute a fail at inspection. Our state's noise in the nighttime law somehow doesn't apply, even when trucks come blasting past our houses at 1, 2, 3 a.m., waking us all up engine braking. There are no decibel noise standards for motor vehicles in our laws, unlike our laws for both ATVs and snowmobiles. Why is that? And for motorcycles, are they actually adhering to the written manual? In practice, the requirement to fail a legally modified exhaust is being ignored by inspectors, I am told. Even though inspectors could fail illegally modified motorcycles without the required EPA sticker, they don't. In fact, the largest retailer and installer of illegal motorcycle exhaust systems in the state is also an official inspection station. A truly shocking discovery I made is that any company that owns 5 trucks or more is allowed to self-inspect in Vermont. I presume that's why all those representatives from trucking firms are there testifying today. When I asked the ALT when this practice of self-inspection began, they couldn't even tell me. They don't even know how the practice got started. It's just strange. And we would very much like to close all those loopholes and try to stop excessive transportation noise at its source, not at the enforcement level, but rather through objective standards and independent inspection. That seems like a reasonable ask of those using our public roads, especially those who use them for profit. For those of us who live near Vermont roadways, noise is affecting our hearing, our sleep, our productivity, and our health, both physical and mental. Noise studies conducted in Stowe Village for my film documented 120 to 160 high noise events per day in excess of 80 decibels, which is the federal noise limit for trucks and motorcycles. These noise levels are not just annoying, these levels are downright harmful. If our neighborhood were located near an airport, the FAA would designate our homes as unsuitable for residential use, requiring buyouts and relocation. Noise pollution has long-term consequences for our most densely populated areas of the state, exactly those areas where Vermont leaders say they want more people to live. Would you move to a town or village center where you couldn't sleep, study, or work, where your infant couldn't nap and your child's development could be affected? And for what? For the freedom for a few to operate unmuffled vehicles on public streets, perhaps to bother people or draw attention to themselves?
Karen,
Besides those individuals, the problem is mainly local haulers who just don't maintain their trucks and who are allowed to inspect. And this is my last sentence. One final question. Why would you treat noise, something that is a known pollutant, harmful to our health, any different than toxic waste, radiation, or air pollution? We know it's harmful. We know the healthy limits. We know how to control it. What's the problem here? I would really like to know. Thank you for your time.
thank you, Karen.
Next up, we have James Hudson from Glover, and then on deck is Jamie Banks, who I believe thinks they're coming on at 12:15. So I don't know if they're here as well, the person on deck, but it says next to it that they're joining at 10:15, sorry. So if they're not here, then.
Then we'll just skip over. and we'll-
Okay, so then if Jamie Banks is not here, after James Hudson, it would be Larry Cobb. So James Hudson. Oh, then you might be next after James. I think Mr. Hudson's on Zoom. You can't hear.
I,
There we go.
can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
What have I got to do?
We can hear you. You're a little slow.
Can
You
you
may
hear me?
want to turn your camera off if
I
you
can
have
hear you.
internet.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Um,
Maybe if you turned your
no.
camera off, it would help.
Okay. I don't even know how to do that. I'm technically disinclined. I'm technically very poor. I'm not with learning well. If you can hear me, I'm just going to start talking.
Can you?
Good morning. My name is James Hudson, and I'm a
Yeah, and we can hear
77-year-old.
you now, James.
Oh.
Good. We can
Okay.
hear you.
You can hear me clearly? Okay.
Yes.
My name is James Hudson, and I'm a 77-year-old veteran with a history of both stroke and heart attack. And for the last 40 years, I've been living in Glover Village, right on Route 16. Although I'm mostly retired now, I operated a small sign shop and painting business from this location. When I bought my home in 1985 for $16,500, Glover was a sleepy little hamlet. It remained a quiet backwater for perhaps 25 years, but the economy was becoming increasingly tourist-based, and the traffic flow has increased in spades. Motorcycles by the dozens in an endless, deafening stream. Pickup trucks similarly share with us their unmuffled machismo. It's driving me nuts. Weekends are particularly bad, but really any day it's not pouring rain is in your face obnoxious. It's not restricted to Glover by any means. I spend time with my girlfriend on Willoughby Lake, and in the evening, while enjoying the sunset, the birds, and the beauty of the place, one unmuffled motorcycle can shatter the mood and make it impossible to even converse. It can go on for a full minute as they ride along the lake. We're on the other side of the lake. I watched with great interest the other night the film aired on PBS by Karen Akins called The Quietest Year, which addressed the many negativities associated with excessive noise. Many of those negativities are health related. I can attest to that personally. I am prescribed 2 blood pressure medications, the efficacy of which are totally negated by the pulse pounding anger I feel when any of the innumerable yahoos come splatting through town. One of the other poignant points the film made was that we don't have earlids. There's no escaping unwanted noise. Please, please pass this bill. I want my quiet village back. Right now, there's no recourse to this disturbance of the peace. I've tried. I went to the police. I've been trying to, with former legislator Catherine Sims, trying to get a bill passed last year. It went nowhere. I'm at my wit's end. It really is disturbing. Okay, that's about all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. You have a full minute left. And we appreciate you being efficient with your time. Next,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, next up is Jamie Banks, if he's here, or if he's expecting to come at 10:15, I don't know. Larry Cobb, you're here. Do you mind coming forward? And I'll just say, Mr. Hudson, you're still unmuted, so if you...
She can,
Okay, so not seeing Jamie Banks, assuming he's coming later, I'll mark that as we'll come back to it. But Larry Cobb is from New England Kenworth, the Vermont Truck and Fuel Dealers.
Good morning. I'm Larry Cobb. I'm Vice President and General Manager of New England Kenworth. We're a new and used truck dealership in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. I oversee the parts, sales, and service departments in all 3 states. I'm qualified to talk about Jake brakes and the inspection laws surrounding the Jake brake noise and their effectiveness. I share your concerns on the ridiculously loud engine noises coming from improperly muffled trucks. No one wants a truck going by their house, rattling the windows and barking out black smoke. I get it. I wanted to share with you how your surrounding states are addressing the very same concerns with a simpler approach with less danger and cost to the public. I sent excerpts of the inspection manuals from Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York. You all have those. All of the states require, except for Vermont, they all require mufflers and the emission systems to be working and in place or the truck inspection fails. My question, like one of the previous citizens, why doesn't Vermont have this in place? This would solve the problem. It seems as though this is an easy remedy by changing a few words in your state's inspection process instead of a complicated bill that is duplicating what your inspection process is already doing or able to do for you. All 3 states require mufflers, emission systems to be working properly, and they have noise standards, but Vermont does not. Please change your inspection laws to include the very simple wording. Later on today, your Agency of Transportation members are meeting here at 11:30. Ask them about amending your inspection process. If a truck comes into one of my shops for an inspection sticker, we look it over. Is everything there? Is everything in place? Is it working properly? The process is very specific with a checklist. If everything is correct, it passes. If not, it fails. We don't pass trucks with mufflers missing in Maine and New Hampshire. Vermont, we have to because your laws don't allow us to stop it. If you listened to a legal truck manufactured in the last 15 to 20 years, and it went by you slowing down with the Jake brake on, you wouldn't really notice it. The systems are not obvious and they're not irritating. Jake brakes are necessary to drastically cut down the braking slowdown period of a truck that weighs 80 to 100,000 pounds. The Jake brakes are definitely necessary. Don't make the trucks dangerous and take away safety in the name of noise intrusion from illegal trucks. Instead, add a few words to your inspection manual and put the older, properly maintained trucks off the road through the inspection process that we can do as a registered and legal inspection station. The other part that I have question is the section 4, page 7, lines 9 through 12. Taking away the ability for me to do inspections on our own vehicles. That means our inventory vehicles. We have 25 to 50 trucks on the lot. If I've all of a sudden got to take those somewhere else to get an inspection, that drives up my cost drastically and it's unnecessary. I have factory trained, certified technicians on staff that can properly do your inspection manual. In closing, you can solve this problem by just changing a few words in your inspection process and give me or give my technicians the ability to do that because they're already factory trained and certified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. We appreciate you taking the time to drive here. Not seeing Jamie Banks. I apologize, Rob Stanger from Simple Energy. You're on. Apologies for not giving you a heads up. Oh, there you are. You're on Zoom. Hi, Mr. Stanger.
Hi, good morning.
And then on deck is Matt Coda.
I have a few comments. I'd like to start by just giving a brief introduction. I own a company called Simple Energy, headquartered in West Lebanon, New Hampshire. We are in the business of transportation of heating fuels, oil and propane predominantly. 50% of my business is located in the state of Vermont, along with our heavy truck service garage and bulk storage fuel location. Echoing some of the comments that have been made today, I want to start by saying none of us that make a living by serving the public are interested in creating anything that could be deemed as a nuisance or adversely impacting health, the environment, or the welfare of Vermonters. Quite the opposite is true. I would argue that my business is helping Vermonters stay warm and comfortable throughout the season. It's something that we have a rich tradition in doing very successfully. What I want to caution the committee about is the potential unintended consequence of the bill as proposed. Simple Energy operates a large fleet of diesel-powered trucks, from 100,000-pound combination tractor trailers all the way to pickup trucks in the course of running our business. Those diesel-powered trucks are all equipped with a variety of systems that are designed to facilitate safety. One of those systems is compression or exhaust brakes. They're loud. I can't tell you that we test the decibel level of every one of those trucks when they're serviced, and we do service our own fleet, but we know that they make noise. The other thing that we do test pretty regularly are the backup alarms, another very, very necessary safety device. And backup alarms, I checked with our diesel fleet mechanics this morning, they range from 90 to 140 decibels for very, very good reason. So it's one of those things that I think we have to be very, very careful in determining where safety stops and where noise pollution takes over. So I think further consideration and study is necessary here. I will also like to comment that two of the mechanics that work for me, we don't really call them mechanics, they're technicians, both hold degrees in diesel technology. Those are degrees that are earned not by hanging around a shop, but there's hours and hours and hours of study. They use very sophisticated diagnostic instrumentation to make sure that the trucks we use to deliver oil and propane in Vermont are not only running properly, but they are in strict compliance with emission standards, emission controls, that they make the proper amount of horsepower to move cargo safely up and down the many, many, many steep driveways and hills that we navigate in Vermont. When I talk to those guys about this proposal, there's two obvious concerns. One is the combination of necessary, and I repeat, necessary horsepower to move cargo and oil and propane to our customers that live in rural locations on top of steep hills makes noise, and so do our backup alarms. And we're certainly sympathetic to the concerns, but there's not an immediate off-the-shelf solution. Additional muffling, as has been proposed, is not necessarily a reasonable solution to the problem. So, like I said, I think it bears further consideration. The other thing I will tell you is that it's a little bit off-putting for those guys to, at the suggestion that they may not be able to inspect our trucks. Their comments were the standards that they follow currently, which are federal and state, are the minimum standard. The standard that I, as the owner of those trucks, require is a much higher standard. And these are it would create an unintended expense and inconvenience for us to try to circumnavigate that. And in fact, you want my guys inspecting my trucks. It's the way that we guarantee safety. Thank you.
Perfect, Rob. And you're just on time. Thank you.
Matt Coda, the Director of Government Affairs for Meadow Hill Consulting and the Vermont Truck and Fuel Dealers. And then up next after that is Eric Wyson. Is Eric here in person? Or is he on, I don't see your name on Zoom yet, Mr. Wyson. Also, oh, it says it's on Zoom. So Eric, you're next, also from the Vermont Truck and Fuel Dealers.
Thank you, Senators. My name is Matt Coda, for the record. I work for a firm called Meadow Hill, and we represent the Vermont Vehicle and Automotive Distributors Association, the people that sell trucks like New England Kenworth. Also, the Vermont Retail Grocers Association that truck in food to our grocery stores and convenience stores, and the Vermont Fuel Dealers Association, which moves energy products throughout the state. We rely on trucks. We rely on diesel trucks. Those diesel trucks rely on compression brakes in order to make safe stops. We understand the concern about mufflers that are inadequately mufflered or sawed off. That's fine. Change the inspection manual. Do not remove our ability to inspect and maintain the safety of our own fleets. That is critically important to reduce the costs of goods and energy products to Vermonters, and critically important to ensure the safety of those fleet vehicles. The mechanics that maintain those vehicles are the ones that are qualified and trained to inspect them. Do not pass this bill. If you want to change the inspection manual to make sure no one can drive a diesel truck with a sawed-off muffler, fine. Thank you for your time.
Wow, whole 3 minutes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Coda.
Sorry, you don't need
Oh,
to
okay.
anything.
Next up is Eric Wyson, who I believe is on Zoom, who is not here. Mr. Wyson, do you mind if I borrow your, I didn't bring my phone. Can I get started?
Yep. And I think Bill Smith is next.
Right, I just want to, yep, then we have Bill Smith, who is a lobbyist for the Vermont Truck and Bus Association and the Vermont Retail Lumber Dealers Association. And then up after that is Michael Gilhooly, who is a resident of Milton. So Mr. Smith. Oh, sorry, I'm dumb, sorry. Bill, sorry. It's even.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Bill Smith. I'm an attorney in Northfield and a lobbyist for the Vermont Truck and Bus Association and also the Vermont Retail Lumber Dealers Association. Both industries obviously use trucks in their deliveries and deliveries to their locations. The Vermont Truck and Bus Association has been involved in promoting the trucking industry since the 1950s in Vermont. And our members are familiar certainly to members of the committee. And most trucks with 259 companies belong to that association, most of them being trucks that haul various cargo into and through and out of our state. So largely, I would echo the comments of Larry Cobb and Rob Stenger. But in looking at the bill itself, if I might get on the record for you some specific requests for consideration of changes to the bill. First of all, the penalties in sections 1 and 2 say a civil penalty of not less than, and then sets an amount. I think we're going to address that, but if the words not less than were taken out of those two sections, I would have a clear fine that law enforcement could use effectively, and that would set criteria for law enforcement to address some of the on-the-road issues that come from direct complaints from our residents. As far as the matters regarding compression brakes, no question that what you're largely hearing out there are unmuffled compression brakes on older trucks that are louder than the last 15 or 20 years of production of trucks in this country. So the key thing that I would like to point out for you really is in section 4 of the bill, which requires that you not inspect your own trucks. There is no evidence that self-inspection leads to louder trucks because they're inspecting to the current manual. Change the manual, you will change the inspection criteria. You will have the truck inspected with mufflers on them. It's as simple as that. I do take issue with the assumption that my members will lie on their inspections when the current regs are not being violated. I understand folks are concerned about the what ifs of that, but I think what we've heard from members in this committee and over the years is that my members want to comply with the law and will comply with the law. So I also think that there might be a potential impact if you leave paragraph D on page 7 in the bill, that there will be, a result might be more uninspected trucks out on the road. Because who are you going to go to, your direct competitor, to inspect your trucks if it were even possible? Why would they inspect you quickly and completely? So having said that, I also think that also means if you have the enforcement tools that you keep in sections 1 and 2 of the bill, you likely do not need section 5, the additional reporting to AOT, because law enforcement will then be able to implement enforcement of a law at the direction of their towns and their counties. And they'll be able to more effectively police this. Finally, Rona Bruno from B&B Trucking in Orleans couldn't make it down today. Not because Rona can't drive in this weather. She can drive better than anyone in this room, I'm sure. But she did want me to share with you some thoughts, particularly on the section D. That vehicles owned by owners of inspection stations, we have invested money, time, and training to be able to inspect only the vehicles registered in our names. They don't inspect someone else's trucks. We don't do outside work. We have strict rules we have to follow and are subject to inspections of our inspections. If there's an issue with the Department of Motor Vehicles doing that, I'd suggest bringing it up again in the hearing later on today, which I will attend as well. Their trucks are late model that meet emission standards and their engine brakes therefore are not allowed. So that's what Rona wanted to share with you for that. I do thank you. I see I'm almost out of time. Obviously, I'm in the building and willing to participate and work with all sides on this to resolve the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Michael Gilcooley is up next, and then Jim Curl from Bournes Energy, Vermont Truck and Fuel Dealers Association is on, but he also has a note next to his name for 10:45. So after that, if Mr. Curl is not available, Nancy Sullivan from Greensboro, you would be up afterwards. So next up is Michael Gilcooley,
She's not here.
who I don't see.
James Banks is not.
Oh, someone's on mute.
Jamie Banks did show up.
Oh, is he here now?
Yeah, he's on. the screen.
Oh, Mr. Banks, would you be able to testify?
Yes, I can. So I'm not quite a mister, but I'm happy
Oh,
to
I'm
testify.
sorry. I apologize.
That's okay.
That
Yeah,
was an
it's
assumption.
Jamie is my first name.
Oh,
Yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm going to basically read a variation of a letter I submitted endorsing the Senate Bill 66. My name is Jamie Banks. I'm the founder and president of Quiet Communities in Concord, Massachusetts. We're a national nonprofit organization focused on reducing harmful noise and related pollution. I'm a health and environmental scientist, and I chair the Noise and Health Committee of the American Public Health Association. I'm also speaking on behalf of Mary Titijan, a registered nurse, founder of Quiet Florida, and chair of our Quiet Streets program. We are testifying on behalf of our organization to endorse Senate Bill S66, modified vehicle noise and jake-braking or distressing communities around the country from Vermont to California. These vehicle sounds are loud and they have strong, low-frequency components that enable the sound to travel over long distances and readily intrude into people's homes. Vehicle noise, and especially modified vehicle noise, have those strong low-frequency components. It causes The stress at lower decibel levels than higher frequency noise, and it deprives people of the ability to enjoy their homes and sleep undisturbed. It's the type of noise that accounts for the majority of noise complaints. The effects of chronic noise on health and well-being are serious and can actually be life-threatening. And that's really because this is all associated with stress, especially when it's repeated time after time. Chronic noise, even at low levels, it's a major source of stress that contributes to ischemic heart disease, heart attack, stroke, sleep disruption, diabetes and obesity, anxiety and depression, dementia and neurodegenerative diseases, and even premature death. Noise initiates a physiological cascade involving the release of stress hormones, increase in risk factors like blood cholesterol and blood glucose, inflammation, and oxidative stress that ultimately damage the blood vessels and impair glucose metabolism. There's evidence that repeated noise primes the blood vessels for even more damage, and there's no evidence that our bodies adapt or develop tolerance to noise. Low-frequency noise and nighttime noise are known to be especially harmful. Sleep is critical to health and well-being and is recognized as a human right by international courts. Disruption and fragmentation of sleep diminishes the ability to clear toxins from the brain, reduces the ability to consolidate memory, and increases risk factors associated with cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. Groups that are most vulnerable to the effect of this type of noise include children, seniors, people with neurological conditions, and people with pre-existing cardiovascular disease. Noise as a public health hazard was recognized in policy statements from the American Public Health Association in 2021 and the American Academy of Nursing in 2016. Increasingly, it's recognized in national print and broadcast media. We hope that this testimony will help the committee appreciate the impacts of loud road vehicle noise pollution. It's not simply an annoyance, it's a threat to physical and mental health and well-being. We urge you to enact the bill to protect the health of Vermont's residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks, and apologies for the confusion there on your pronoun.
No problem.
Uh,
problem.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So next up, we have Eric Wyson from Wyson Trucking, Vermont Truck and Fuel Dealers. And then after that, if Mr. Gilhooly is available, or Jim Curl. Curley, my apologies. So you picked the one person who can't do names to.
Well, I'd be in the same boat.
Mr. Wyson, or I see you're on the screen, but we don't see your video.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, trying to get that started here.
You're welcome to give your statement without video if that's
Yeah,
easier.
I apologize for that. I don't know why the camera didn't come up. I was working on that, but anyways, I wanted to thank everybody for allowing me to speak today in regards to S66. My name is Eric Wyson. I own Wyson Trucking. Though we're based in Massachusetts, we work in Vermont daily for our customer base up there. We deliver fuels throughout New England and New York. We have for the past 30 plus years. I provided a little bit of information to you folks to give a little bit of background on what I was going to talk to you about today. While I fully understand the stance on noise control, I do believe that the S66 bill would have an unintended negative consequences. Braking systems are undoubtedly the most critical component of any vehicle, and their proper use is vital to the safe operation of heavy trucks especially, particularly when navigating steep grades, such as those commonly found in the state of Vermont. An engine brake can account for up to 50% of the stopping power of a heavy truck. Limiting its use would be dangerous. Understanding the importance of this safety aspect, I believe the responsibility for enforcing the issue should come from qualified vehicle inspectors currently operating in Vermont, as well as commercial motor vehicle enforcement officers who are specially trained to assess the compliance in the field. The ability to police the issue by the should not lie in the hands of the public, I don't believe. Trucks that lack adequate sound deadening devices shouldn't pass a yearly inspection. You should be able to be ticketed by commercial motor vehicle officers if they're found to be non-compliant during roadside inspections. In regards to like having no muffler or having the muffler to have been modified or damaged so that it makes it louder. If you do move forward with this bill, I'd ask you to remove section 4, lines 9 to 10, where it would limit how the inspectors could work. And knowing all these factors with my industry background, again, I would believe that S66 shouldn't be passed in its current form. There are more effective approaches that could be used to address these noise concerns without implicating the safety of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Weissman. I don't see Michael Gilhooly on. So next after that would be Jim Curley from Borns Energy, also from Vermont Truck and Fuel Dealers Association. And he is in person. And then next up is Nancy Sullivan, a Greensboro resident. And Mr. Weissman, you're okay.
Good morning. My name is Jim Curley. I've been in the trucking industry for more than 25 years. I'm here today to speak in strong opposition to S66, a bill that targets engine compression brakes or Jake brakes in an effort to reduce noise. While I understand the concerns about noise, I believe the bill presents serious issues for both safety and the trucking industry. First and foremost, Jake brakes are an essential safety tool, particularly on steep descents. They help slow down a vehicle without overworking the service brakes, which could overheat and fail, especially on long downhill stretches. Limiting or penalizing their use without considering safety risks is dangerous. These brakes must remain fully functional to ensure truckers and others on the road are safe. If noise reduction is a concern, let's focus on the vehicles that are inadequately muffled. We should ensure that mufflers are in place and functioning correctly, but we should not impose unnecessary regulations that could compromise safety. I also want to address section 4 of the bill, which prohibits fleet operators from having their own mechanics inspect their vehicles. This provision would require trucking companies to take their vehicles off the road to have them inspected by a competitor, leading to unnecessary downtime and increased cost. The inspection process is already strict and thorough and ensuring safety. The provision does nothing to reduce noise, but increases operational costs, which ultimately impacts consumers. I can assure you that safety is paramount in our company, and we strive to be safe every day. Moreover, the bill introduces a citizen reporting system for noise complaints, which was just talked about by Eric. While well-intentioned, this system risks subjecting truckers to unfair complaints based on personal preferences rather than legitimate safety concerns. This could lead to inconsistent enforcement and undue penalties for violations that are not related to safety. Instead of advancing a bill that could harm public safety and create additional costs for small business, I urge you to reconsider. Focus on the actual safety concerns, such as ensuring mufflers are functioning correctly, and work with manufacturers to develop safer, quieter technologies. Lastly, I'd like to ask how this bill will be enforced for out-of-state carriers. Will they also be compelled to comply? Is Vermont creating another barrier for business that might choose to operate elsewhere? In conclusion, I ask that the committee reconsider S66. We must find solutions and address noise concerns without compromising the safety of truckers and the public. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Curley. And next up is Nancy Sullivan, and then afterwards is Susan Brito after that. I think I see Susan. You're going to be after Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, good morning. I'm in support of S66, which provides a reasonable and simple way to address two of the worst transportation noise problems in Vermont, unmuffled motorcycles, and Jake brakes. I'm a 39-year resident of a primary road into a traditional, peaceful Northeast Kingdom, Vermont town. I can testify to the impact these unmuffled vehicles have on our quality of life. They unnecessarily degrade the environment, cause sleep loss, conversation and activity interference, and stressful aggravation, as many have talked about today. Since the road I live on is a downhill stretch, use of Jake brakes in particular is frequent. It's like screeching explosions piercing the normal quiet. If one is conversing outside, your conversation is completely drowned out. S66 provides for a simple and inexpensive means to eliminate these two problems. We encourage you to pass S66 in some form to help preserve the quality of life in our historic Vermont villages and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Everyone was so efficient today. Next up, we have Susan Brito, and after that is, Nancy, has your hand up?
Brito.
Brito. Thank you. And then after that is Rick Hamilton, a resident of Milton. Go ahead, Susan.
Good morning. My name is Susan Brito, and I am begging you to do something about the excessive road noise pollution in Vermont, specifically due to the proliferation of aftermarket exhaust and the routine use of Jake brakes. I was born and raised in Berry City, and members of my family still live there. I used to own a lovely home in Berry that was very close to Route 302, the main east-west route to New Hampshire, also a trucker's route, and the road of choice to the infamous Bike Week in Laconia, New Hampshire, which draws thousands of motorcyclists each summer. It's really hard for me to talk about how awful it was to have to endure the blasting noise, the constant roar of loud motorcycles, the sleepless nights, not being able to enjoy my property that I worked very hard for as a single mother. I'm still traumatized by it all. This topic often reduces me to tears. I loved my home so much. It was a stately Dutch colonial with beautiful curly maple woodwork, a beautiful front porch, and a partially secluded back porch. I could never enjoy or have a conversation on either of my porches after the proliferation of modified exhaust. I used to love to walk everywhere in Berry, but I had to stop going on walks in the city when it all became unbearable due to constant roaring, ear-splitting road noise. Of course, I tried to do something about it. I called the Berry City Police several times, only to be laughed at. Many on the police force had their own loud Harleys. I contacted Les Blomberg at the Noise Pollution Clearinghouse in 2009 and again in 2011, and I was surprised by the fact his organization seemingly wasn't doing anything about it. I joined online anti-noise groups, Noise Off and then Noise Free America. Excessively loud, ear-splitting road noise is a problem I've had to deal with for the past 2 decades. I live in a more rural place now in Berlin, but I'm within a mile from I-89, and there are days that my peace can still be ruined by ridiculously loud motorcycles and cars. So many have been modified with aftermarket ear-splitting exhaust, and their roar can be heard for miles and miles. I hear Jake brakes constantly from a mile or more away. My adult son, who lives in San Francisco, California, stayed in an RV on my property last summer and declared that it's much quieter in San Francisco. I avoid walking in downtown areas now. I no longer go anywhere near downtown Berry. I don't use Route 302 in the summer. I stay home when I know the bikers are going to be out en masse. When I hear ear-splitting bikes and cars now, I have a Tourette syndrome-like reaction, which I cannot control, cowering, covering my ears, and spewing profanities. I am a different person than I was, much less content in nice weather, months, all because of excessively loud, ear-splitting modified exhaust. I think you are hearing enough witness testimony to know that Vermont needs to do something about this problem. Excessive loud road noise is a health and community crisis. There are cities and towns across the country with the same problem. There is a success story from the city of Elkhart, Indiana, which I have submitted as evidence to you. Please read that story and consider the fact that the enforcement of anti-noise laws there are paying for themselves while reducing crime and vastly improving the environment and health of their citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan.
Next, we have Rick Hamilton, who is a resident of Milton, who I believe is on Zoom. Hello, Rick.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay.
And on deck is Lori Smith, City Council member from South Burlington.
Yep. And let me know if I need to turn my video off if my voice is dragging and being slow. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'm speaking to you to confirm my support of S66, the current revision of Vermont's vehicle noise ordinance. I have lived in Milton since the late 1970s. My home is at the intersection of Vermont Route 7 and Lake Road. Lake Road is at a slight incline from Route 7, and the vehicles tend to accelerate up the hill, and some trucks tend to jake brake down the grade. Several years ago, to address the number of accidents at the intersection, the state of Vermont worked with the town of Milton and changed the intersection from a Y to a T. The grade on the Lake Road was lowered 18 inches from my driveway to Route 7, and concrete gravity retaining walls were installed on both sides of Lake Road. This resulted in creating a sound chamber that has amplified traffic noise. Average traffic noise is tolerable, but some drivers treat the stretch of the road as an opportunity to amplify their vehicle's acceleration and noise as they race up the hill. At times, the noise generated by unmuffled accelerating vehicles traveling past our home is so loud that my wife and I can't hear each other speaking at our kitchen table inside closed doors. Outdoors, the noise is much worse. It has made outdoor living in our backyard unpleasant, to say the least. Some trucks use their jake brakes on Lake Road as they approach the stop sign at the intersection. Other trucks use them as they travel south on Route 7, slowing to turn onto Lake Road. And Route 7 here is not a steep descent, and there is no cause to use them, but there's probably some safety issue. They may be going a little too fast. Jake braking in itself is not excessively loud if the trucks have adequate mufflers. And to let you know, we have a sawmill down the road from us, and we've lived in that house since 1981. And the jake braking is not a problem with people coming from the sawmill with their muffled jake brakes because they're responsible drivers. It's the irresponsible drivers without muffles that you can hear. So again, the issue is inadequately muffled vehicles. Unmuffled motorcycles passing on Route 7 and Lake Road are another huge source of excessive preventable traffic noise. While the late Don Turner was town manager in Milton, he and I discussed the excessive noise and speed issue at our intersection. He was aware of the issue and made some suggestions about posting a digital speed sign and posting an officer in our driveway. He advised me to contact my senator and representative, which I did, as well as reaching out to the committee and ask about the status of S64. At that time, S64 was on the wall and I offered to give testimony, but as we know, S64 never got to testimony stage. I'm glad to see S66 has generated some discussion. I have expressed my concerns regarding excessive noise to my Senator Chris Matos, who lives past me off our road, and he is aware of the noise generated near the intersection and understands my concern. He shared with me his concerns about the pressure on law enforcement to implement S66. I see law enforcement in the role of identifying offenders and the state inspection process under Section 1222, evaluating compliance. I see the bill recommends money collected by fines to be put into the enforcement budget. I believe this bill has been carefully drafted, and as you know, Vermont is the only state in the union with no restrictions on vehicle noise. I am aware that both St. Albans and Essex have recently drafted their own noise ordinances. Noise pollution has become an increasingly troublesome issue for Vermonters, and the state has the ability to create a vehicle noise ordinance applicable to all communities in the state. And I just wanted to share that some of the speakers today have very much influenced me. Some of the trucking speakers talking about changing the inspection law, which would be 1222. I think that makes an awful lot of sense. And I'm really glad there's discussion. I hope something happens with S66. And I thank you very much for your time. Rick Hamilton, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Next up, we have Lori Smith, who is a city councilor in South Burlington. If Lori is available, I believe they're coming in. They believe they're coming in at 10. Oh, she's there. Okay. So next up would be Kelly Coda Tully, former state representative from the Wyndham 3 district. And then after that would be Seth Chase, also a former representative. And then I don't have anyone else on my list. I have no one else on my list, but that's fine. So I don't know what. Oh, you don't, if there's other people who want to testify, I don't. Go ahead. Oh, okay. You can finish. Yeah, trying to get the schedule.
Well, thank you, senators, for allowing us to come and speak to this bill. I do believe, as the last gentleman just spoke, that this is a great topic of discussion, and maybe it will become something that's addressed at the Agency of Transportation level. So I'm sorry, my name is Kelly Tully. I have a trucking company in the southern part of the state. I also work for a family business that is a liquid energy company as well and transports propane and heating oils. We do pride ourselves in maintaining our trucks, just like a lot of the other testimony from the folks in the similar businesses and transportation, that our trucks, majority of our trucks are less than 10 years old, to make sure that we comply with the federal standards for the latest in not just emissions, but in sound. I believe that we have the ability to put safe trucks on the road, and the inspections that we are able to do with 150 of our vehicles, it would be a really, I think, an unintended consequence to have us have an increase in cost in business. There's not enough state inspectors as it is. Take our trucks off the road and not be able to support our customers would be a hardship as well. We are able to keep our inspection station running as intended by the Agency of Transportation. But we are required by law to have all of the Parsons equipment that the state dictates to us. Our inspectors are licensed. Their name goes on every inspection. We plug in all of our vehicles into the state computer. So all this information is available at the state level. A lot of the information that we talked about really is enforcement. We do need to tweak perhaps the decibel level if there's, as Mr. Cobb brought up as far as all the trucks that he talked about in the New England and New York area. If that was part of the Agency of Transportation information, that would probably fix that. So again, that would be something that is plugged in. If it's an enforcement issue and a company such as ourselves or anybody else that is presented here, they will be able to enforce who did the inspection if it was not followed. And hopefully the discussion will support the DOT as far as the stops that they're making, so they can further inspect any of if there's a question about the mufflers or any kind of aftermarket on that. So I think that we take this very seriously. We take the inspection of our vehicles and the safety of the health and environment for everybody around us in the state of Vermont. Thank you. And by the way, as I'm talking, this is the decibel level that you can see. As you know, there's also a minimum decibel level for electric vehicles, which is 75 decibels at 12 miles per hour. So, thank you. I'll try to be more quiet next time.
That's great. I love it. See, you can have them on your phone. Okay, so last but certainly not least is Seth Chase, former state rep. Hi, Seth.
Howdy. Good morning. My name's Seth Chase. I'm a former representative from Colchester. I've been a car guy my whole life, and I've also been a state and nationally certified motorcycle safety instructor for over a decade. I'm a big automotive enthusiast, and our state has a long history of automotive sports, including a really neat company up near me that builds some of the quickest Subarus in the world. Unfortunately, frustration with noise from a small subset of the community often leads folks to have an unfavorable view of one of my favorite hobbies. Sometimes they suggest rules in years past that would have been hard to measure, hard to interpret. Moving forward, if there are going to be additional regulations, it's important for those measures to be objective, provide repeatable test results under replicable conditions so that individuals and organizations know what to expect. As a previous guest mentioned, the phrase loud pipes save lives. So I wanted to add some clarity to that from my professional perspective. And that is that the claim is not supported by evidence. If it was the case, insurance companies would offer you a discount for loud pipes. And as instructors, we would be advising our students to run a louder bike to keep them as safe as possible. What we do have evidence of, however, is that increased noise tends to lead to increased rider fatigue. And we all know what happens when people are tired and fatigued when they're trying to drive. We advise hearing protection as part of a rider's personal protective equipment, and it's not unreasonable to think that mufflers would be included in that. There may be a personal preference or performance reasons for a louder bike if you're going to a track day or something like that, but safety is not one of them. And I'm happy to answer questions, or if anybody had any further questions later on down the road about that particular portion of this topic.
Thank you, Seth. It's good to see you.
You
And
too.
then I believe that's our last witness, but I did want to just
Michael,
through-
it doesn't seem to be here. Is there anyone else in the crowd that would like to address us today? Then I think at this point, I would thank everyone for coming, and we will be having committee discussion and moving forward with a discussion within the community about this. And we thank you all very much for highlighting the different pieces in the different sections of the bill, and there will be more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.